who was at Rockefeller University Hospital in New York from 1948 to 1982. He passed away in 2007. Um, the and some of the things we're going to talk about are his patients and their interactions with the doctor. When this all started in about 1950, 1960, the big thing around the country was that there were a lot of real small children. Small children, and if you had small children, you wanted to make sure they grew up, bigger. Nobody wants anybody small. I know the I was small in high school. In fact, in my freshman year, when I went out for the football team in high school, the coach looked at me and he said, "Goodbye." I was too short. And then
Wow.
my second year in high school, sophomore year, I went out and the coach said, "Goodbye." So then I was still too short and small. 11th, when I was in 11th grade, then I went out, he said, "You're going to be on the team this year, but it'll be junior varsity." And I was in 11th grade. I got a little taller. 12th grade, I went out and I played varsity football 1 year of 1 year of varsity in high school, which was strange that I didn't have 3 or 4 years experience, but I didn't have. I was too short. And then I ended up getting a scholarship to Clemson University and went there. And eventually we played in the bowl game. But people hated to see their children small like that. And how do you get big? So this guy, Reginald Archibald, he was a big doctor in New York City and worked at one of the biggest hospitals in the United States, at Rockefeller University Hospital. So they sent their children to him, especially boys that were short. And he was supposed to come up with something so they can get bigger and taller. Nobody wants a real short kid say, "He's my son, he's in a wedding and he's only 5 feet tall or 5'2". So they're trying to get these kids to grow up. And so he was treating them, and he treated a lot of people. He had at that hospital, he had 9,000 patients that he treated at the hospital in New York. Now, next question is, what was his treatment? I don't know. It's complicated, really. Like most of them, well, you could say that he was treating just regular medical treatment, but then he would also put his hands on their private parts because he was trying to see if he could get them bigger down there. I think this is what he figured. Then they would get taller. So a lot of times he went,
Wow.
and then he not only had his hands down there, but he told them to put their hands down there and start playing with themselves and things like that. And even whatever, get excited or whatever, standing there in his office with no clothes. That's what he'd do. He'd bring him in the office with no clothes. He told them what to do.
Wow.
And then I think supposedly he figured that that if they did this on a regular basis, they would get taller because, nobody wants boys that are real short. And a lot of his people were from 7 years old to about 15. And then a lot of these people start thinking, well, maybe this treatment wasn't good and we want to sue him or something. This is later in life, like there's a couple of people out there now, they're 57, say, I want to sue him for the way he gave me, the way he treated me. But how are you going to sue him? The statute of limitations is run years ago. The criminal statute of limitations is run years ago. And now the governor of New York, he has something going. Como, he's trying to pass a 1-year statute that's going to extend all the cases for 1 year, everybody's case.
Wow.
And go back forever. But during that year, they had to file their suit and they had to get in court 1 year. But now, the state Senate won't agree to it. And there's some other people against it too, like the Roman Catholic Church. They're against it because they argue that that 1 year window could lead to catastrophic financial damage for them, because all these old cases down the line that some of these priests were involved in, all of a sudden, these people that they were involved with are going to be able to file suit during this year. So that's pending right now. But other than that, if he was treating you or doing whatever he was doing back in 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. In fact, some of these guys here now in this article, they're 57, but what are they going to do? Run to file a civil case, and the criminal statute is also run if there is criminal liability. I don't know. But a lot of their, well, they send out, the hospital did send out letters to 1,000 people notifying them that he left and if they have any complaints or anything. And a lot of those have written back, but we don't know what they said. They haven't showed those letters or the answers to the public. In fact, the hospital has hired a lawyer to represent them now. So it's all up to what he did with his former patients. And their allegations suggest a pattern of sexual abuse from the 50s through the 70s among patients as young as 6 to 17. And there's one guy, 57 now, he says he was 12 years old. And when he went to Dr. Archibald, he asked him to masturbate when he was about 12 years old and then doing it himself. And he kept telling him to keep trying to the kid. Another guy, Mr. Harris, who lives in New York, said that during a visit in the 70s, the doctor massaged the area between, all the way down between his legs. He was massaging that area and asking if it felt good. And many of the patients, and that's why there hasn't been that much publicity, because many of his patients were real short. And people sent their kids there, especially boys, because they didn't want a boy that was real short, and they figured that his treatment, whatever it was, would help these boys get taller somehow.
Right.
And a lot of that is trying to understand children's growth. And that's what we're talking about in that. But nearly every victim that he had, he told them when they walked in his office to strip naked, stand against the wall, and hold their palms out facing forward while Dr. Archibald took photographs, and he would take photographs of them with a Polaroid. And he also had 2 articles were published by Dr. Archibald. He publishes himself containing pictures of naked boys. So I don't know if that was in his brain or whether he did think this was helping these boys get taller, because that's why they were sent to him. He was one of the biggest hospitals in the world, and I know he was very expensive. And if I had a kid 5 feet, a boy, and he was going to 10th, 11th, 12th grade like I was when I was in high school, I mean, I wouldn't, if he could get him taller, I'd be sending him there in a minute if I could pay the price. And
he was just nasty.
And they said anything that happened in his examination room. And the one guy thinks that, well, the doctor asked him to go on a trip. This one guy said he wanted to take him on a 2-day trip, and the guy he believed that Dr. Archibald raped him on the trip
Mm.
to the doctor's Canadian summer home. He'd go up there once a year to get the house ready for his family when they came. And the other thing was that the Dr. Archibald generally at examinations at the hospital, almost everyone would watch the person he was examining and masturbate. So, so he thought that had something to do with treatment, I guess. The the other thing, one guy took him on a 2-day hotel trip. He went up there to get his house ready, and he said when he was in the shower, the doctor tried to come into the shower with him, and he ran out and said he wanted to go home.
Good food.
And Dr. Archibald spent about his whole career at the this hospital, Rockefeller Center, and then he was at Johns Hopkins University for 2 years. And we don't know the total number of children that participate in his studies. He maintained records, but I know from the beginning that according to his records there were 9,000.
Good.
And they wrote this letter recently to 3,000 people to see if they weren't satisfied with the doctor or what. But that's where this case is now. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you trying to figure it out as to what can you do to increase the height of children. I don't know. Maybe this doctor actually thought. I mean, I don't know what percentages he had, but this was one way to do it. Thank you.